Feel like everyone is here now, so I can kick off the webinar. You're all very welcome, and thank you for joining today's session. I'm Rory Kieran. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at CSM, and I'm privileged to have so many companies here today. It looks like 46 different businesses in the B2B space, which is really exciting. A lot of you, chances are you're feeling some familiar growing pains right now, which we'll start to unpack at the end of this webinar session. We're going to open it up to a Q&A. So I will stop the recording and we can just have a free-flowing conversation. But for now, I'm going to unpack the topic of how to build systems that scale beyond silos. So if you're working in B2B right now, you've probably experienced some growth in the past. Maybe it was fueled by a great product, a strong founder network, some key campaigns, or maybe some really good hires. But if you're on this, you've probably hit a ceiling, and things that used to work just aren't delivering the same results today. So we're going to start to unpack that, why that happens, and more importantly, what to do about it. If growth is a little bit stagnant, you're seeing pressure from your leadership team or from investors, or maybe you are the leadership team and you're dealing with, raising funds and investors kind of breathing down your neck and asking you what's happening. Well, then you're in a very common scenario. And here's the reality, is that most B2B companies, they don't actually have a unified growth strategy. Marketing is doing one thing, sales is chasing a different target, partnerships, they're left out of the loop, and operations, they're constantly trying to catch up. It's one of the most common pains because we speak to B2B businesses every single week. And operations, they're constantly trying to catch up. Everyone's working hard, but not together. And when that happens, the blame game starts to creep in. So teams start pointing the finger. Growth slows, and then hiring becomes a band-aid solution for what is really a systems problem. So in this webinar, we're going to challenge a few assumptions that more people equals more growth. It doesn't if you're not managing the chaos and you don't have a good system in place, because the systems should run the business and the people run the systems, not the other way around. That each department should own its own goals in isolation. We don't necessarily believe that. And that culture and strategy can be separated. They can't. So one drives the other. And we'll show you how to build a scalable growth engine that's basically unified by revenue operations, one that's built in alignment, one that's a repeatable systems and shared commercial outcomes. And I'll actually show you one of the exact systems that we've deployed in one of our clients' businesses, so you can actually see it from a helicopter view and you can understand it a bit more. So let's kick into it. So a big thing for us is a lot of businesses, they've gotten from A to B, but getting to C requires a different game plan. So it's a different mindset. It's looking at things a little bit more intentionally, a little bit more controlled, and executing with precision. So how we do this is we break everything up into zones. We have the strategy zone, the build zone, and then the growth zone. And in the growth zone, there's these 5 different sections. So let's have a chat about them. So the strategy zone is a lot of businesses, they've gotten from A to B through grit, through trying loads of different things, a lot of trial and error, testing different campaigns, testing different ideas and strategies. But what's going to get you from B to C is actually a really strong strategy with the right brain power coming in to actually plot a go-to-market strategy properly. And I'll show you what I mean by properly, because it takes about 4 weeks to complete and over 100 hours. So like an actual strategy that's going to get you, a 20% growth, or, to grow a few million more in revenue, isn't simply just more grit and more random campaigns and spontaneous growth initiatives. It's going to take a lot more brain power than that. And I'll talk you through that in a moment. Once we have a really strong strategy mapped out based on insights and data and studying your competitors and seeing where there's white space, looking at your unit economics, looking at financial forecasting, looking at your prospects experience, which is your PX, and what the flow path analysis of that is from complete unawareness to paying customer. And we map out that journey, and we look at distribution channels and getting in front of your ideal customer in the right way. Once we have that strategy, and as I said, it takes 4 weeks, then we move into what's called the build zone. And in the build zone, we're just getting your foundations in a stable place. We're getting things like your website, your landing pages, your offer, your positioning, your lead magnets, your pitch decks. Everything needs to be in strong foundations before we switch on campaigns and move into what's called the growth zone. So in the growth zone, you launch a campaign. You get it into proof of concept as fast as you can, meaning you're starting to see traction. When you start to see traction, you then look at making iterations and making it better and really doubling down on what's working and cutting out what isn't working. And that's when you move into the expansion zone and the enterprise zone. Now, a lot of companies, they can kind of drop off here. They can not realize that marketing is a feedback loop and it's constant improvement. And not just marketing, but business development, anything growth related, anything that grows the business and moves the needle forward. If you're not looking at it as a feedback loop, you can fall short and you can actually turn into stagnant risk and drop off completely. Okay? So we've been doing this for the last 8 years. We've owned multiple brands in Ireland, like Evolve Marketing, CSM Agency, Untold Creative, and Evolve with Systems. And we've worked with, a huge amount of brands, but we've consolidated now under one entity called CSM. We've basically brought 4 agencies into one really strong powerhouse. But we've been doing this for B2B businesses for a very, very long period of time, from a lot of big professional service firms to a lot of big global brands as well. But we always start with strategy. Strategy is at the forefront of everything that we do. So when we look at strategy, strategy is our ability to make the right decisions. With unlimited options, there's so many things we could be doing. But the most important thing is what we are doing with our time, with your money and resources. We need to figure out what's going to give us most leverage for our time. Because with infinite options, but finite resources, strategy is really just the discipline of choosing what creates the highest return on effort. So the biggest problem that we find with outsourcing, and one thing that really frustrates me personally, because I've owned product businesses, I've owned a product business that sold into 60 stores. We were in Arnott's and McElhinney's and Gifts.ie. And I worked with a lot of agencies. And the one thing that really frustrates me, and why I don't refer to us as an agency anymore, and more a growth partner, is I felt that I was getting paired off with, well, first I would speak to someone who was very competent, and I'd have a really good conversation. But they would pair me off with someone who was maybe a graduate or had maybe 3 or 4 years experience. And I was going through all of this trial and error. And it really frustrated me because I was paying for speed. That's why I outsourced. I outsourced to pay to skip the guesswork. I was paying for guidance. I wasn't paying to go through trial and error. And I think that's why we outsource. We outsource for, in one case, in strategy, for the right brain power. We need the right brains to put the strategy together. We need the right group of talented people to map out exactly how we're going to get from A to B. They need to understand our current situation and our desired situation and help us to figure out how we're going to get there, fill that gap. So that is the most important thing for us is, we're not your stereotypical agency who says we just do Google ads. We're specialists in Google ads or Meta ads. We're not here to sell businesses on anything like that. And the reason being is we have a customer-centric focus. So we're channel agnostic. And what that means is basically we're not biased to any channel. We have the ability to advertise on any channel. The most important thing for us when we're working with our clients is figuring out where their customer is hanging out online and how we're going to get their attention and drive value and be able to capture that attention and drive them into a pipeline. That is the most important thing for us. Now, what we see as another problem in the market is there's a huge amount of agencies out there pushing Google ads or LinkedIn ads or all of these different quick win strategies, get rich quick schemes. And so many B2B businesses are falling for it. They're saying, okay, we have to try that campaign. We have to try this campaign. That's not how you grow the business. You grow the business through the right functions and the right systems, which I'll show you in a moment. Quite detailed systems. Systems that look a little bit like this. So I'll be touching on this in a moment, but just to give you a glance, so no one leaves this webinar too soon. So how we approach this is growth needs experts. One person can't do it all. Real growth needs the right experts working together. And what we find in B2B is the CEO is under pressure from investors, or maybe they're just in a stage of scaling. So they go to their sales director and their marketing director, and their partnerships director and their customer success director, and they give them all targets. They say, you need a new strategy. We need you to get from 10 million to 15 million in 3 years. Figure it out. And that individual on their own is constrained. And the reason they're constrained is naturally they're not going to have the same experience as a data analyst who's got 10 years experience just in being a data analyst, or a financial strategist who's only done financial strategy, or a head of brand, a brand director. They're not going to have the same experience. A marketing director is a generalist. I'm a generalist. I have a good base layer knowledge of everything, but I am not a specialist. I'll never claim to be a specialist, because if I was a specialist, I would just do one thing for 10 years. That's what I would refer it to. 10 years and have spent 20,000 hours just doing the one thing. That's what makes a specialist. So, it's very, very unrealistic for a marketing director or a sales director to come up with a holistic go-to-market strategy on their own. So what we do is we bring in and surround them around some amazing experts. And over 4 weeks, we map out an incredibly strong go-to-market strategy. Now, this is for the ambitious businesses. It's for businesses that want to grow by a few million, not by a couple of €1,000. We wouldn't advise going into this level. But a business that wants to grow by a few million, they need good brain power for 3 to 4 weeks to properly map it out. And once we've done that, these are some of the members of our team that are just involved in the strategy phase. But once we've done that, we look and say, and probably brings up an important part, is hiring in-house versus outsourcing. Outsourcing, in my opinion, is for high leverage skill sets first. So until you have a growth engine, you have systems and SOPs strong enough to justify hiring in-house. So what we find with a lot of B2B businesses, they hire a BDR, let's say, but the BDR has absolutely no system. They're just emailing people willy-nilly, connecting with people on LinkedIn. But if we put a system in front of that BDR to start, and we actually deployed a system like this and really mapped out what it takes to actually grow from an outbound perspective and set them up for success, the chances of success are far higher. So setting up those systems, realistically, you do not need a director of analytics full time if you're at that sort of 5 million to 10 million, even all the way up to around 25 million. We would say you do not need a director of analytics. You don't need to, this is the Irish salaries in Ireland. You don't need to pay someone 189,000 or 207,000 euros, or a chief growth officer, or a head of media, or a head of brand. It's not necessary. It's not necessary to spend this amount, but you do need them in the initial stages for their brain power. And that's what we bring in those early stages in that strategy phase. Then what we do once we've got through strategy is we start to map out those growth engines that we need to build. Okay. So typically there's 4 key growth engines that we focus in on first. Brand sits at the top. Then you have outbound, inbound, and nearbound. There's a misconception about what brand is. Brand sometimes can get misconstrued into a logo, color schemes, a fancy website. Brand, in our opinion, is the value you bring to your market. And you've got pillars around your brand. Okay. Pillar 1 is all around the values internally, what you stand for, CSR programs, exactly who you are and what you give to the world. And are all around your people and letting your people shine through in your business. A lot of businesses hide behind logos and believe that they're, a Nike or a HubSpot or a Salesforce when they're not. They're not there yet. They don't have that luxury. Okay, especially if you're not past 100 million, you shouldn't be thinking that way. Your people are very, very important still at that stage. So you really need to make sure that your people are front and center. That's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2 is all around the value you bring to your market. So how are you providing them with helpful content, material, talking about your process, talking about everything that you can bring to them. You don't even have to charge them. We've got 8,000 businesses in our newsletter that we're helping on a regular basis. We're giving them cheat sheets. We're giving them white papers. We're giving them frameworks. We're giving them SOPs. We're giving them a breakdown of growth engines. Whether they do it internally or they outsource to us, that's completely up to them. But we're still going to give value to our market. So it's the value that we bring. The third pillar is perception. So it's all around testimonials, reviews, case studies. I always say your best sales reps are your customers. It's not your sales reps selling people. It's your customers. Let your customers do the talking for you. You learn about a business and understand them properly. And then after the fact, let the case studies and the reviews do the talking for you. So we're in a privileged position because we're the highest reviewed growth partner in Ireland at the moment, which again carries a lot of weight. We have close to 100 case studies in a variety of different industries. Again, massive amount of weight that carries, because after a call, we can just send that to our customers. They can read about the case studies. We don't have to go into them. It literally has exactly what the customer has said about us. We've even got video case studies of our customers speaking about us for 10 minutes over video. So let your customers do the work for you. And that's what brand is. Brand needs to sit on top. And the reason there's a line here and it's separated is inbound, outbound, nearbound, and having an all-bound engine where you bring all 3 together. They don't necessarily work unless you've got a good brand. You understand your positioning. You know how to position yourself in the market. Positioning, again, is very misconstrued around, positioning is what your customers are saying about you. And don't let them make their mind up about you, because you might not like it. You tell them what they need to know about you. Be very intentional about it, is what we would say. So again, a couple of slides there that I just wanted to kind of tee you up with before I bring you into like a level of structure here around what this looks like at a helicopter view. So let me just bring you through. So if you look at things from a helicopter view, I think this is nice on the eye because it allows you to understand that growth in a business runs in systems. And when you have a systems mindset, towards growing your business, your people run the systems, not the other way around. Do not rely on people. People come and go. You're going to hire a manager or hire a director. They might be with you for 2 or 3 years, but when they leave, you don't want half the business to leave with them. You want to have the systems and the structure that can bring this business forward for the foreseeable. And this is, again, a massive, massive problem across the board in business, is that we rely way too much on people rather than systems. So in order to create good revenue operations and have really good structure in a business, it's basically bringing different departments together. There's way too many departments running in silos. And that's kind of the main topic we're speaking about today. And what happens in silos is the blame game starts to happen. So marketing blames sales for not closing deals, sales blame marketing for poor leads, and then you've also got operations who are kind of struggling to kind of build that centralized source of truth through a CRM system. You've got leadership just crying out for everyone to get on. Just like, please, can we just figure this out? Why that happens is everyone's given their own targets. And targets kind of create that level of ego and separation between different departments. But really, what you want to do is you want to bring those departments together and not have them work in silos, and really try and create a culture where the blame game isn't set up to happen. Okay. Now, in order to do that, what we really need to do is work through a level of zones. Okay. So, first things first is to speak about the importance of strategy, processes, systems, data, and people. So, we run an exercise with all of our clients around this to showcase the importance of revenue operations when it's brought together. Okay. So, it means that there's a centralized source of truth. It means that everyone's working off the same hymn sheet and we know exactly what we're striving towards and how we can help each other. Okay. Now, once we've kind of informed all stakeholders and all leaders within a company, then what we want to do is focus in on strategy first. So we move into that strategy zone. Now, we have a very focused process with strategy. We have an accelerator program that takes 4 weeks, and it's very, very detailed. Like at a high level, I'm not going to have the time to go through all of this in every bit of detail, but we start with clarity and insights. So that's all around your positioning and rethink how you're seen in your market landscape. So your total addressable market, your total attainable market, break that down for you, looking at your competitors and doing a gap analysis and spotting places that you can take advantage of. White space is what we call it. And we pay for a huge amount of tools that allow us to do this analysis at a really detailed level. Like we can show you how much traffic your competitors are getting, where that traffic is coming from, what distribution channels they're using, how much they're spending on advertising, how much traffic they're getting, what's converting. So there's so much that we can see. What are they being known for? Like what are their customers saying about them? What are your customers saying about you? And how we can start to position yourself that little bit differently. We look at really mapping out what your offer is and what your structure is around your offer and how we can differentiate you amongst those competitors. Then we look at your economics. So, the numbers around your business, financial forecasting, unit economics, how to scale, where there's margin. So forecasting models, we look at creating a CEO dashboard, like really simply breaking down all the most important metrics. We look at, an ROI calculator of how much it's costing your business to get a lead at the moment into the pipeline, what your close rates are, really working towards numbers. Like everything that we do is very numbers driven, meaning we want to make sure that you're growing your business in a predictable way. Then we move into revamping the prospects experience. So the prospects journey is something neglected. Not a lot of people talk about the PX. They're more talking about the CX. What's the customer experience? The prospects experience when it comes to growth is so, so important. So really mapping that out, like how do we explain ourselves? What's a flow path analysis? Not the old way of kind of disjointed. It needs to be really, really focused, okay? We need to work on, lead magnets and education and your foundations and getting your landing pages set up correctly. and really speaking to your ideal customer, mapping out, what's working and what's not working. And that flow path from complete unawareness to paying client, there might be 30 touch points. We want to figure out where's the bottlenecks within those touch points. Then moving on around how we get in front of them. So what distribution channels we're using, we look at the buyer's pyramid and really mapping out campaigns and structure and like what distribution channels are going to work. And then from there, we're just putting together a growth blueprint. And that's going to look at mapping out what are the key decisions that we need to make in order to hit our targets over the next 12 months. Everything's working towards our North Star and the objectives that we're working towards. So once we've gone through that strategy zone and the accelerator, we can add to this or we can take away from it. We always meet our client where they're at in the journey, but this is the level of detail and structure that we have to go into. As I said, it takes a serious amount of time and energy and brain power to do this properly with the right types of people. Then you move into what's called the build zone. The build zone, very simply, is getting your foundations in a stable place. So things like your website, branding, pitch deck, landing page, analytics and RevOps, lead magnet, CRM system, and a value ladder. It's not to say you need all of these. You might have an amazing website. You might have an amazing brand. We're going to have an honest conversation about it. Like, we're not there to just do what you want. That's what a crap agency does. As a growth partner, we're there to do what you need. We're there to advise on that and tell you the why behind it. So, if your conversion rates are incredibly low, we need to look at how we enhance the customer journey, the prospect's journey from the minute they land on your website or your landing page. Because industry standard will allow us to make a judgment of that and put heat maps on your site and see if what we're doing is working. So we start to build those growth engines. Once we have these foundations in a stable place, we start to build those growth engines, brand engine, a nearbound engine, an inbound engine, and an outbound engine. Like even in outbound, we'll go through account-based marketing and like really structuring account selection, internal alignment, data and intelligence, account planning, value creation, channels and plays, performance and metrics, technology and infrastructure. So we'll really start to map that out. Then what we're also going to do is we're going to look at, the inbound engine and really breaking down that funnel from capturing attention at the top of the funnel, educating, driving value, acquiring that as a lead, and then driving loyalty. So mapping out those funnels and trying to create a bit more predictability with growth. So once we've built your foundations, and these are the engines and the systems that are going to run your business, then you can run campaigns through those engines, okay? So don't want to make this too complex, but this is what's called a campaign structure. So campaigns run through these engines. For instance, let's say we were running a LinkedIn campaign on an inbound side to get leads, but we were targeting CEOs in manufacturing companies in America with only 1,000 employees. That's all we were going after. And we were targeting 1,000 companies. We would have one campaign and it would run through this growth engine. So the growth engine stays within the business, but the campaigns run through it. And we have a level of predictability with how a campaign is run and what the structure on the back end looks like. It's the same with outbound. So in outbound, we have lots of different data sources. So ZoomInfo, Apollo, Clearbit, Cognism, Hunter, Drop Contact, Snov, Lusha. And for us, the most important thing is we're collecting data first. So we use that data and we can feed that data into an algorithm. So we can use that data in LinkedIn, in Google and Meta, but we can also use it in campaigns for outbound. So you're going to get all that data. You're going to start to populate it with really relevant information using ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. AI is built into everything that we do. So using AI to our advantage, where we're learning about these businesses, if they've won an award, if they're what are they doing well, what case studies are working on their site, calling them out in a positive way, feeding that into a CRM system that you might use, enriching that data with clay, so scoring it if they have intent behind what your service or product is. You can find that data now. So it's being very data focused as to how we build a total addressable market with these data sources. Once we have that, then it feeds into email outreach, to LinkedIn outreach, to even lumpy mail if you're sending out a letter in the post. Okay, so this is the way in which we get in front of people. And then from there, you move into someone booking into your calendar for a discovery call, and we get notifications in Slack. So what you'll see here, this is an engine. There's a clear system behind this and clear structure. Multiple campaigns can run through this. We run about 12 campaigns a year, one per month, through this exact engine. And this is the most important point that I'd like to drill home, is if businesses aren't working in silos and they're all working, if they're working in silos and not in unison, the outbound team, the business development team, isn't necessarily helping the inbound team, because the outbound team should feed that data source over to marketing and should say, upload this data set that we're targeting at the moment. We're targeting CEOs in New York, in B2B businesses with 1,000 employees in whatever sector, okay? And they send that information over, and then marketing and inbound have the same approach with their LinkedIn ads. So they're using that data set. Now we're working in unison. Now we're actually looking at all of this as revenue operations. Then also at marketing, the brand and the content side of things, like this huge amount of detail that we go into around the topics. And we've created AI agents in our clients' businesses now that are constantly coming up with content ideas and breaking that up. And, that's a video and a webinar for another day. But I'd love to bring you through that at another stage where we're actually showcasing to you how you can use AI to create a brand engine and to pump out weekly content. We have it so much so that we're creating blogs and articles that really just need a copywriter to look over it. They've been trained as a GBT. They know how to write. They know how to not be picked up as sort of generic AI copy. You would not notice, and they're ranked. These articles and blogs and white papers, they're already ranked on the search engine, and they're AI created. Same goes with like video content and writing out scripts. Even the script for today's video was created by AI. So again, it's really a case of us making sure that all of these engines are working in unison, that someone's realizing that campaigns run through all of these, but if they're all working together, you get far more traction, okay? Goes back to what I said here. Brand sits at the top, and for all of these engines to work, they need to be working in unison. So I'm going to stop the recording now. I'm going to open up to Q&A. We have about 15 to 20 minutes, so plenty of time. Please just put a Q in the chat. And what I'll do is I'll just go in order of whoever writes it in now. So